close two parts. Table 6, can you tell me one of the transformations for number 12? Well, if I come back to you, it'll only be harder because other people might take the transformation. There's 4 of them. You just need to tell me one of them based on the equation. Yep, there's 4 changes to the parent graph based on this equation. You just need to tell me one of them, table 6. Any one of you, not this one. Okay, wider class, do we agree, disagree? It does get wider. What's the math word I'd actually rather you use for that? Compresses, okay? Think of like if I took a picture of this and I like smushed it down, compressed it, it would be wider. Okay, so it compresses. By a factor of 1/2. That's a common thing that they'll say. I didn't see that on your test, but that's just good to know. It's compressed by a factor of 1/2. Table 1, what's another transformation going on? It is reflected. Class, agree, disagree? How do you know if it's reflected? If the A is negative, so we fully conquered the A, right? If it's different than 1, then it's either being stretched or compressed. If it's negative, it's being reflected. So that covers that. Table 2, can you tell me another transformation? It's going down by how many? All right, yes, that is true. What tells me if it's going down, the H or the K? The K, and since K is a -2 and K is always outside the parentheses, like being added or subtracted, since it's negative, it goes down by however many that would be. Okay, questions on that? So then there's only one more transformation. Table 4, do we have it? The H is probably the hardest, I'll give you that. But the H moves it in what direction? It shifts it what direction? Well, it shifts it left or right. If it looks negative in the problem, that means I must have plugged in a +3, which means that in this one, it moves to the right. 3 units. Okay, so H I get is the hardest. The way that I think about it is, you know, this is my equation. I'll highlight it. Where to look. This is my equation. In the equation, it says -H. So if it says -H, to me, it looks right. But in the equation, it's -H. To me, it looks right. So it moves to the right. If it looks wrong, that means it's a plus. That means it moves to the left. So I don't know. That's just how I think about it. But you know what you can always do to check your answer? You can plug it into Desmos and then count from the vertex how much it moved up, down, left, right. You can even see if it got wider or more narrow. So let's look at that real quick. Again, I don't want you to use Desmos as a starting point, but it is a useful tool to check your work. So you could always graph your parent graph. That's your starting point. That's the minimum requirement to be a quadratic. And then graph the other stuff in vertex form is fine. And then you could see, compare the vertexes, the vertices. It moved down 2. It moved to the right, 1, 2, 3. So that covers both of that. It also looks wider, so that means it's compressed and it flipped. So that's also a reflection. That one had 4 transformations. Is there always 4 transformations? Yes, no? Are there always going to be 4 transformations? No, but at a maximum, there will be 4. So like this one has 2 transformations. This one has 1 transformation. This one has 2 transformations. For you guys, do just the transformations for, let's do 10 and, let's do 10 and 11. So 10 and 11 will be the U try just for the transformations though. Let's see. Table 5, can you tell me the transformations for number 11? Okay, down 7. That is true. So that covers the K. What about the 3? So class, what is this, an A or an H? The 3. It's an A. So the A has nothing to do with left or right. So try again. Maybe your table makes more of too. If the A is 3, then what does that do to the ground? It would be stretched by a factor of 3 if you want to get like fancy. But yeah, it would be stretched. Again, here's your little cheat sheet. You can't use this cheat sheet on the test, but when in doubt, you could like play around with numbers and Desmos and see, like compared to the parent graph, is to making the A3, making it skinnier. That would be a stretch. Okay, it's not reflected because it's not negative. There's no H, so no left or right movement. So that is it for that one. Questions on that? So that's good for 11, only 2 transformations in that one. Let's look at 10 real quick. Okay, table 7, there's kind of more information, but I trust you. Table 7, what are the transformations for number 10? There's table 7.
Up by 1.
Okay, up 1. Good, because this is the K. The K gives me my up or down movement. I know there's more because otherwise it would have just been x squared plus 1. So what else is in there? Do I have a value for the A? Okay, what is the value for the A? Well, no, the A is always, and even in standard form too, it would always be in front of the X. So it's -1 right here. So A is -1. What does that do to the graph, class? It does make it negative, which means that the graph would look,
Go to the left.
it would reflect. A has nothing to do with left or right. A only either reflects it if it's negative or makes it stretched or compressed. All right, H is the one that has to do with left or right. That is always inside parentheses with the X. So if it looks like that, did it move left or right? Back. Right by how many? Right by 4. By 4 units. Okay, and again, the way I think about it, it looks right. It has a minus H, so it moves to the right. But again, because we just plugging in those the same. Just question? All right. So that really covers what'll be on your test, but I know for your practice, you might need to know this last part, which is making the equation given the transformation. So, for example, if it's translated 2 units to the right, what letter does that affect? The A, H, or K? The H. So that's gonna be in parentheses with the X. And if it's going to the right, would that be plus or minus right here? Minus. And then the squared always goes there because it's after, like outside the parentheses. Do I need to put anything else in there? Do you put y equals? I guess you don't really have to, but that's it. Because it didn't say it moved up or down. It didn't say it was stretched or compressed or reflected. So that's it. All right, I'll give you a couple of try of these. I didn't really see it heavily on your test, but it is good to know. So why don't you try 17, 15, and 19. So just like in this row. This column. Try those and then I'll leave you 10 to practice. All right, so here are the solutions. So compare, see how close you were. I'll explain each of them too. But yeah, so if it's being translated left, that affects the H. The left or right is the H. And it would have to look plus in the equation. Really what we plugged in for it to become plus was a -3, right? Because normally in the equation it's X minus H, and that's why it became plus. So -H being plugged in moves it left. And then K moves it up or down, so that one is easy. It just matches the sign. If it's going down, it goes negative. So questions on 15. All right, notice we didn't have to put anything for the A because we didn't say anything about compression, stretch, or reflection. So you just move on. 17, we had reflected over the x-axis. That affects my A, and that makes it negative. That's why I have a negative, and it has to be in front of the x. Then it's translated down, and that's the K. That's always outside of the x squared. Notice this one doesn't have parentheses around the x because we don't really need to. There's no left or right movement, so it's just x squared like normal. Questions on that one? All right, and then the last one, vertically compressed by a factor of 1/3. That just means instead of A being 1, it's now 1/3. If it said it reflected, we would make it negative, but it didn't, so it's just positive. And then it's translated 8 units up, which is your K, so it's outside of the parentheses. I mean, we don't need them in this one either. Cause there's no left or right movement in this one. So questions on the lesson today? All right, so the rest of the time you will work on your practice. You'll also work on this tomorrow too, so now you should be able to do the whole thing. And remember, you only have to do the evens or odds. Okay, evens or odds is up to you, but do that. I'll put, because I won't be here tomorrow, I have another training to go to, so, you will have this to turn in. This will be like your primary focus, and then any like study guides, missing work, you can have time tomorrow to do. But don't say like you don't get the time. I know some of you don't use the time, but you still get it. So questions on that? All right, and trust me, I will not have the key up tomorrow either. So check as you go today. I will take the key down before I leave, so you can check another time to see if you're right, but just check as you go today, evens or odds.